It stretched for over 70 miles, hidden in the darkness beneath the English Channel, snaking across the seabed like a forgotten relic of some ancient battle. But this wasn't myth or fantasy. It was codenamed Operation PLUTO, the pipeline under the ocean. In 1944, with victory far from guaranteed, the Allies quietly laid what would become one of the most audacious logistical efforts of World War II, a secret fuel pipeline designed to supply the advancing armies after D-Day. Few knew it existed. Fewer believed it would work. And yet, it became a silent artery, pumping life to a war machine charging across Europe. The need for Operation PLUTO arose from a deceptively simple but critical problem: fuel. In the lead-up to the Normandy landings in 1944, Allied commanders faced a logistical nightmare. Romantic visions of heroic charges and decisive battles masked a more mundane but equally vital truth: modern warfare ran on petroleum. Tanks, trucks, aircraft, and jeeps all demanded astonishing amounts of fuel, and while capturing ports on the French coast was part of the plan, German demolitions and bottlenecks would delay their usability. Relying solely on vulnerable fuel tankers crossing the Channel risked disaster. A secure, constant, and invisible supply line was needed. The challenge wasn't just technological, it was existential. Without fuel, the breakout from Normandy would stall. And with it, the entire liberation of Western Europe. Enter the visionaries and misfits of British wartime engineering. The mastermind behind the pipeline was Lord Louis Mountbatten, Chief of Combined Operations, who championed unconventional methods to unpredictable problems. He gathered an eccentric team of scientists, petroleum experts, and naval officers, many of whom had no experience working together, let alone laying a pipeline under open salt water. Among them was Arthur Hartley, a civil engineer and director at the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company. It was Hartley who proposed adapting submarine high-voltage cable technology into a fuel-carrying pipe, an astonishing leap of imagination. The result was two types of pipeline: the rigid haze pipe, made with layers of lead and steel wrapped around a rubber core, and the more flexible HAMEL pipe, constructed using discarded steel tubing. These lines had to be tough enough to survive tidal currents, sabotage, and wartime chaos, yet nimble enough to be coiled, transported, and deployed from modified ships, known as Conundrums, massive floating spools, that looked absurd but worked surprisingly well. Each innovation bespoke a man wrestling not just with physics, but with the sheer pressure of wartime necessity. They weren't just laying pipe, they were holding together the hope of an entire continent. The first test of PLUTO came not with a bang, but with a murmur of anxiety and uncertain optimism. In August 1944, as Allied forces solidified their grip on Normandy and pushed deeper into occupied France, fuel supplies remained razor-thin. The initial Hayes and HAMEL pipelines had been laid from the Isle of Wight to Cherbourg, a Herculean task fraught with setbacks. Storms delayed deployment, undersea faults had to be painstakingly corrected by divers, and early leaks reminded everyone how thin the line was between success and catastrophe. But slowly, by late summer, precious fuel began to arrive, just a trickle at first, then hundreds of tons per day. Though the pipelines never delivered as much as hoped, PLUTO ultimately provided only a fraction of the fuel used. It offered crucial reliability when tankers were rerouted or ports choked with debris. More importantly, it proved the astonishing reach of wartime ingenuity. The Allies had not just crossed the Channel with soldiers and guns, they had crossed it with infrastructure. These underwater veins kept the advance alive, even as bullets and bombs made headlines. Yet, PLUTO was not without controversy or criticism. Some in the British government and military questioned its cost and ultimate efficiency, especially given that traditional tankers and overland fuel transport ended up carrying the lion's share of supplies. Skeptics viewed the project as a diversion of material and effort from more proven logistics methods. In raw numbers, the pipeline delivered around 180 gallons per second at its peak, but this comprised less than 10% of the total Allied fuel used in France. Still, in moments when ports were inaccessible or convoys delayed by weather and enemy action, Pluto's flow became vital. Its real legacy lay not just in tonnage, but in the demonstration that audacity, adaptability, and technical daring could solve problems no textbook had ever addressed. The pipe may have delivered less fuel than expected, but it carried something deeper: the belief that no distance, no depth, and no difficulty was beyond the reach of Allied innovation. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. To fully appreciate Pluto, we must place it within the broader shift in warfare logistics that characterized the Second World War. The industrial nature of the conflict meant that front lines were not merely physical, they were logistical. The decisive battles were as often fought on supply manifests and engineering drafts as they were in the hedgerows of France. D-Day was not just a storming of beaches, it was the largest, most complex supply chain ever initiated under fire. Fuel was not simply an asset, it was a lifeline, and to run out mid-advance or mid-flight could spell catastrophe. Pluto symbolized the new face of warfare, where success hinged less on the heroism of individuals and more on the orchestration of machines, mechanics, and materials. In this light, the pipeline was not just a pipe, but a prototype of future war infrastructure, modular, mobile, and buried until needed. It foreshadowed the Cold War's underground missile silos, the Vietnam War's jungle supply systems, and even the modular energy deployments of the 21st century battlefield. In building a highway of fuel beneath a war-torn sea, the Allies were paving a new route for military strategy, one that ran not just through courage, but through cable and conduit. Still, the human element behind Pluto remains its most haunting and unheralded aspect. The men aboard the cable-laying vessels, often more familiar with fishing trawlers than fuel infrastructure, operated under extraordinary pressure and secrecy. Many were recruited hastily and given only minimal training before being sent out into the hostile waters of the Channel. The very notion of laying a pipeline underwater had never been attempted on this scale, and doing so under wartime conditions required immediate problem-solving, improvisation, and resilience. Crews worked around the clock, often in punishing weather, battling mechanical failures, enemy reconnaissance flights overhead, and the constant risk of detection. Despite the elaborate engineering, the success of Pluto ultimately came down to perseverance at sea, each inch of flexible pipe laid not just by design, but by human grit. In many ways, the project mirrored the broader Allied effort. A grand convergence of innovation, uncertainty, and resolve, powered as much by individuals daring enough to try as by the machines they operated. As with so many wartime innovations, Pluto left behind a paradoxical legacy, celebrated quietly by the few insiders who understood its uniqueness and forgotten by the many who saw only the grand victories plastered across headlines. After the war, much of the pipeline was scrapped, its metal materials recycled in the post-war industrial rebuilding. Today, remnants of Operation Pluto still linger along the English coastline and in the fields of Normandy, rusted testimonies to an invisible artery that once pulsed with the fuel of freedom. The story of Pluto doesn't fit neatly into the traditional narratives of World War II heroism. It was not a weapon that fired, a tank that rolled, or a plane that soared. It was a machine of quiet defiance, buried beneath the waves. And in that silence lies its true resonance, a whisper from history, reminding us that sometimes the most vital victories are the ones no one hears. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In post-war military doctrine, the lessons of Operation Pluto would ripple into strategic thinking well beyond Europe. NATO commanders studying Cold War logistics cited the operation as evidence that infrastructure, even in hostile conditions, could be rapidly established if designed for stealth and adaptability. Engineers tasked with supplying fuel to remote bases in Korea and later Vietnam took cues from Pluto's modular systems, its coupling mechanisms, its coiling techniques, even its improvisational ethos. Though its wartime efficiency had limits, the concept of mobile supply networks hidden beneath the terrain would become a standard for both military and humanitarian engineering. From Arctic radar stations to desert fuel relays in the Gulf War, The ghost of Pluto lingered in every plan that sought to tame uncharted ground through pre-positioned infrastructure. And perhaps that is its quiet triumph, not in the pipelines that decayed with time, but in the idea that a war machine could, with sufficient imagination, outpace both the enemy and history itself. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. Yet, even among those who operated the system, many remained unaware of its full scale or purpose until years later. Compartmentalization, the hallmark of wartime secrecy, meant that sailors who maneuvered the Conundrums across the Channel rarely grasped just how vital their cargo would become. Divers patching leaks in the freezing waters below barely knew what they were safeguarding, and the engineers working round the clock to solve pressure fluctuations often operated in the absence of strategic context. This fragmentation of knowledge was by design, a safeguard against espionage and accidental disclosure. But it also symbolized the war's shift into the realm of specialized, distributed labor. Pluto wasn't executed by a handful of masterminds. It was built and maintained by thousands of unrecognized hands, each solving problems in isolation, each trusting that somewhere their labor would matter. That collective, anonymous effort echoes into our own age of distributed systems and invisible networks, proof that a great endeavor rarely looks grand from the inside. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Pluto's very existence challenged conventional wisdom about what was logistically, technologically, and politically feasible in war. At a time when vast armies and epic tank battles captivated global attention, a silent pipeline beneath the sea quietly redefined the rules of engagement. It proved that victory could hinge not only on firepower or valor, but on unseen systems that made operations possible in the first place. Perhaps its greatest achievement was psychological. It instilled confidence in the Allied high command that innovation could bridge the unbridgeable and give form to strategies that once seemed impossible. The effort to turn a vulnerable waterway into a secured energy corridor required a fusion of science and imagination, bureaucracy and rebellion. In the long story of World War II, Operation PLUTO was a glitch in the margins, an innovation whose success was partial but whose ambition was total. It asked a wartime generation to believe that even under siege, the impossible could be laid inch by inch across the ocean floor. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. What ultimately makes Operation PLUTO so compelling is not just its scale or secrecy, but its defiance of orthodoxy in a conflict often defined by doctrinal rigidity. It represented the spirit of improvisation that animated the Allied war effort, a hidden artery engineered not through consensus, but through conviction. The project's leaders championed disruptive thinking in the face of stagnation, executing a blueprint on faith, a quality as critical as steel or fuel in wartime logistics. That defiance would resonate long after the war, urging future planners to reconsider where lines could be drawn and what limits could be tested. Modern military innovation still relies on this inheritance. The willingness to invest in improbable solutions before the need is fully understood. In this way, Pluto did not merely support the victory in Europe, it prototyped a new kind of strategic thinking, quiet, adaptive, and subterranean. More than a pipe, it was proof of concept for infrastructure that could vanish from view, endure in uncertainty, and deliver when everything else seemed poised to fail. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Today, few remember the Pluto pipeline when recounting the grand arc of World War II. Its cables no longer pulse with pressure, its vessels have been broken down, and its inventors have faded into obscurity. But its echoes remain in every modern pipeline inserted quietly into hostile territory, in every offshore drilling rig that pushes the boundaries of engineering, in every remote base, sustained not by chance, but by unseen systems designed in desperate times. Pluto's story is a monument to the untold victories of infrastructure, the triumphs not shouted, but sustained. It reminds us that in war, as in peace, sometimes the greatest advances come not from invention alone, but from the audacity to believe in their necessity. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. As we look back from the vantage point of a data-driven, globally connected 21st century, Operation PLUTO takes on a new kind of relevance. Today's military challenges, cyber warfare, energy security, climate-driven deployment zones, demand the same creativity under constraint that PLUTO once exemplified. It was an early iteration of networked warfare, where connectivity and resource flow mattered as much as firepower. In an age where supply chains can be as vulnerable as front lines, the lessons of buried ambition and modular resilience remain more urgent than ever. PLUTO wasn't simply a World War II oddity. It was a forebear of the invisible architectures that now define both modern war and modern peace. Its story is a challenge to future generations of engineers and strategists. Can you build not what is easy, but what is necessary? Can you prepare not just for the war you see, but the one that waits beneath the surface? Because war isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Ultimately, Operation PLUTO invites us to reconsider what constitutes victory in war. It urges us to honor not just the headlines of heroism, but the blueprints, the welds, the perseverance beneath the surface. While generals charted offensives and infantry slogged through hedgerows, a silent struggle for continuity and connection unfurled beneath the waves. PLUTO's legacy is not in the fuel it delivered, nor the medals it earned few ever were awarded, but in the precedent it set. That imagination, even under the weight of war, can move mountains and cross oceans. In our praise of battlefield glory, we often forget the power of quiet invention. But every mile of pipeline told a story not just of strategy or survival, but of belief that ingenuity could outflank destruction. That structure could become salvation. That boldness, bolted into steel and buried in salt water, could carry more than fuel. It could carry the future. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. The pipeline that once lay hushed beneath the channel now resides in the annals of strategic vision, a ghost story told in the language of steel and salt. In remembering PLUTO, we are reminded that the course of history often hinges not only on commanding voices or conclusive battles, but on subtle undertakings that dared to widen the realm of the possible. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't glamorous, and it hardly roared, but it worked. In a moment when the world teetered between tyranny and liberation, it flowed. That flow, fragile, flickering, absurdly ambitious, gave momentum to a march that liberated millions. The hidden pipe, like so many hidden hands in wartime industry, built not for glory but for purpose, and succeeds in teaching us what few battlefield monuments ever can, that the lifeblood of freedom may come not from the front, but from the unseen. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In the final accounting of wartime innovation, Operation PLUTO represents the quiet courage of technological foresight. It serves as a reminder that not all victories roar, and not all heroes carry rifles. Some victories are plotted on drafting tables, assembled in shadows, and stretched inch by inch across hostile seas. PLUTO does not live in legend like the Spitfire or the Sherman, but it lives in every modern attempt to tether energy to risk, mobility to security, and precision to vision. What began as an improbable dream under command pressure became a functioning, if flawed, mechanism of momentum. It embodied the messy brilliance of war, engineering a collision of failure, invention, and necessity that dares future generations to imagine the next PLUTO, not as a relic, but as a blueprint. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And so, as history edges further from the cracking welds and oil-slicked hands that carried Operation PLUTO into being, we are left with its most enduring contribution, a template for human resolve in the face of technological impossibility. The Allied engineers, sailors, and strategists who dared to lay a pipeline under wartime waters were not merely solving a military problem, They were daring to redefine the boundaries of what could be done when conventional wisdom failed. Today, in an age still grappling with the balance of innovation and necessity, Pluto resonates as a story of silent triumph. It teaches that even fleeting success, born in obscurity and flawed in function, can alter the course of conflict and inspire generations. Whether remembered or forgotten, it pulsed forward when it mattered most. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Even now, beneath the waves and windswept shores where Operation PLUTO once lived, its spirit anchors a vital truth about war and human endeavor. That truth is simple, yet often overlooked, that the greatest acts of wartime bravery are not always found in the roar of tanks or the charge of infantry, but in the quiet persistence of those who build what has never been built before. Pluto asked its engineers to solve a riddle no blueprint could fully answer, to gamble against physics and tides, and to believe that a cable of rubber and steel could carry the weight of liberation. They did so not for glory or fame, but because they believed that winning a war required more than courage. It required connection. From seabed to command post, from lab to battlefield, Pluto tied together the chaos of war with the order of design. Whether hidden beneath water or hidden in memory, it remains what all great inventions are: bridges across the impossible. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. As museums and archives gradually digitize the relics of World War II, there is hope that Operation PLUTO's story will no longer remain submerged in history's footnotes. Technical schematics, faded photographs, and oral histories from surviving crew members are beginning to surface, offering new generations a glimpse not just into wartime ingenuity, but into the conviction that built it. Educators and military historians now cite PLUTO as a case study in unconventional strategy, teaching students that not every great invention feels triumphant at first. Its tools were repurposed, its goals revised, and its impact debated, but what endures is its challenge to resignation. In the trenches of planning and the currents of the channel, PLUTO lit a path for innovation born not from certainty, but from necessity. It forces us to reckon with a world where ideas must often outpace resources, and where bravery includes not just facing bullets, but betting everything on the power of an untested design. As modern conflicts grow more complex, the lessons of that silent, fuel-laden corridor remain urgently relevant, a testament that in war, solutions must sometimes be sunk before they can lift nations. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. So as the tides of time continue to wash over the forgotten apparatus of Operation PLUTO, we are urged to carry forward its most understated message that innovation often walks a lonely path, one marked not by applause, but by persistence. It is in that persistence, in the quiet courage to imagine a solution before anyone believes in it, that PLUTO finds its true legacy. The war it served is long over, the pipeline dismantled, the names behind it etched softly into history's margins. Yet the principle it embodied, that unorthodox problems demand unorthodox answers, endures in every drone-laden sky, every autonomous supply convoy, every line of code defending networked borders. In laying a line through the channel, the Allies also laid down a challenge for the future, to never stop building toward what the world has yet to imagine. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. In a war so often remembered through the thunder of artillery and the clash of armored divisions, Operation PLUTO endures as a reminder that the heartbeat of victory can pulse in the quietest of places. Beneath the waves, beyond the reach of enemy guns and public acclaim, ran a lifeline crafted not with spectacle, but with stubborn hope. It stands today not as a monument of steel, but as a philosophy engraved deep into the infrastructure of modern military strategy, one that values anticipation over reaction, resilience over recognition. As we face new global challenges that demand equal measures of ingenuity and resolve, PLUTO's story reminds us that the most powerful innovations are often invisible, their influence stretching far beyond their physical limits. In laying a pipeline, the Allies also laid a foundation, a blueprint for thinking differently, daring boldly, and connecting what was once thought unconnectable. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And so we close the chapter on Operation PLUTO, not with fanfare, but with the sober admiration it deserves. It was neither a flawless success nor a sweeping failure. It was a courageous experiment born in the crucible of necessity. In today's fast-evolving landscape of warfare and technology, Pluto reminds us that history's most enduring innovations are rarely finished products. They are the stepping stones toward something greater. As conflicts shift into the cyber realm, as energy becomes both weapon and lifeline, and as supply lines remain the quiet front of every battle, the spirit of Pluto still flows, not in oil, but in every idea that dares to defy the obvious, every plan that challenges the impossible, and every mind that decides not to accept limitations as fate. For in the long, echoing corridors of history, one truth remains. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. The final legacy of Operation PLUTO may not lie in its fuel output or technical specifications, but in its enduring capacity to reframe what wartime achievement means. It showed that the path to victory could be quieter than the battlefield and more complex than a command. As we define the future of defense and humanitarian response, in an age increasingly shaped by automation, climate urgency, and geopolitical instability, Pluto reminds us that the most consequential innovations are often the ones buried beneath attention, stitched together by belief and necessity. In designing for what seemed unreachable, its architects touched something timeless, the conviction that salvation can arrive not with a roar, but with a hum in a cable beneath the sea. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In commemorating the quiet grandeur of Operation PLUTO, we confront a broader truth about how progress so often disguises itself in the unassuming. This underwater pipeline, forged not from perfection but from persistence, now serves as a parable for any time humanity must build in the dark, guided by conviction rather than clarity. It didn't end the war, but it helped carry the weight of one. It didn't dazzle, but it endured, and its lesson, rippling onward through every hidden system and covert design, remains urgent, that in the face of overwhelming odds, the answer may lie not in louder weapons, but in deeper thinking. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Operation PLUTO is more than a footnote in the chronicles of World War II. It is a testament to unseen brilliance, to the kind of innovation that thrives not on visibility, but necessity. Its story compels us to reassess what it means to fight and to win, not just in war but in any endeavor that challenges the limits of imagination. As we chart uncertain futures filled with technological marvels and geopolitical tensions, we would do well to remember the lessons laid, literally, beneath the sea. That victory is not always loud, that resilience begins in design, and that sometimes the most transformative ideas are the ones that travel unseen, coiled into action beneath the surface of history. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Perhaps the most profound lesson of Operation PLUTO is that breakthrough has no fixed form. It can be a prototype sketched under duress, a cable spinning beneath cold whitecaps, or simply the decision to attempt the untried. While strategies shifted and empires contested every inch of terrain, a hidden stream of problem-solving ran parallel to the front lines. PLUTO reaffirmed that innovation in warfare is most effective when it solves pressing problems with uncommon means. It connected not just fuel depots to battalions, but concept to action, vision to result. Today, as we navigate an era defined by shifting threats, cyber intrusion, energy insecurity, climate-driven conflict, the spirit of PLUTO remains not just relevant, but essential. It wasn't the grandest invention of the war, nor the most celebrated, but it was, quite possibly, the boldest act of belief. That beneath the chaos, beneath the waves, beneath every fear of failure, ran a chance to make the impossible work. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. In the end, Operation Pluto asks us to redefine heroism not as spectacle, but as resolve. It teaches that the most impactful acts of bravery may not reverberate through newsreels or echo in the halls of diplomacy, but instead hum quietly along the ocean floor, connecting hope to necessity in the darkest hours. It is a blueprint of defiance written in wire and willpower. A quiet triumph that reshaped the idea of what could be risked and what could be won. As long as humanity faces the challenge of doing more with less, building in uncertainty, innovating under pressure, Pluto will remain a lodestar. A hidden network that once fed a war machine, it now nourishes the imagination of every strategist, engineer, and thinker determined to lay lines through the impossible. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. As the shadow of World War II recedes further into the past, Operation Pluto remains a testament not only to wartime resourcefulness, but to the enduring value of vision under pressure. While its pipes no longer pulse and its machinery lies rusted or repurposed, the mindset it embodied is alive in every daring logistical concept that follows. In moments when the complexity of modern warfare threatens to overwhelm, Pluto stands as a quiet guide, reminding us that the future of defense, and indeed, of resilience, often lies beneath the surface. It was conceived in secrecy, executed under duress, and remembered only by those who understand that the architecture of victory is rarely visible. But its legacy endures, wired into the infrastructure of possibility. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. And in that endurance, Operation Pluto finds its final note not of celebration, but of conviction. It reminds us that innovation does not always shine brightly in its own time, and that some victories are built strand by strand, without applause, in service of a need greater than any single engineer or commander. Pluto did not change the outcome of the war alone, but it changed the expectations of what could be done when circumstances made shortcuts impossible. It was not pure triumph, yet neither was it failure. It was the war effort's heartbeat translated into cable and current, a fragile promise stretched across a hostile sea. In remembering Pluto, we do more than honor a technological marvel, we honor the audacity to try the untried. And that remains the core of all meaningful progress. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. So let the last whispers of Operation Pluto remind us that even in the most devastating conflicts, the path forward is often mapped by those willing to build in silence. It forged no legendary name, won no great battles on its own, but its quiet defiance became a proof of principle for generations to come. Today, as wires and code replace cables and diesel in shaping modern conflict, its relevance only deepens. It tells a story where courage took the shape of coordinated thought, where bravery meant gambling on blueprints not yet tested. And in doing so, Pluto ignited a legacy far beyond its fuel lines. A legacy that endures wherever bold ideas are born in the shadows and laid across impossible distances. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. Operation Pluto stands now as an enduring emblem of wartime tenacity, not because it dazzled, but because it dared. It reminds us that even at the height of global conflict, the smallest act of belief in a sketch, in a bend of pipe, in a team of determined minds, can yield consequences that ripple far beyond their moment. As future generations confront threats that demand not just reaction, but reinvention, Pluto's silent strength endures. It teaches that real progress is found in efforts taken without guarantees, in visions pursued without spotlight, and in results remembered long after their creators have faded from view. In laying a line beneath the sea, the Allies proved that audacity, not just arms, can tip the tides of history. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. And as we draw the final line across this epic of submerged courage and improbable ambition, Operation Pluto leaves us with one enduring truth: that the spine of history is often forged in the quiet acts of those who refuse to concede to limitation. It was never just a pipeline. It was a signal flare from the depths, declaring that necessity would always find a route if imagination dared to lead it. Though the tides have since claimed its coils and the world races toward ever more complex frontiers, the fundamental lesson holds firm: ingenuity is not a luxury in wartime. It is the strategy itself. The Allies won not just through superior numbers or firepower, but because they built hope through innovation, one submerged mile at a time. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. To remember Operation Pluto is to honor a specific kind of courage, the kind not etched in medals, but in measurements, not displayed in parades, but in pipe lengths quietly unspooled in jeopardy's shadow. It was emblematic not just of how wars are fought, but of how they are won when ingenuity rises to meet the impossible. As its story resurfaces among historical reappraisals and declassified records, it reminds us that behind every visible victory lies an invisible foundation: concrete and steel, rubber and cable, fire and vision. Pluto was all of these, and more. It was a whisper of promise across a volatile sea, and a question posed to the future. How far are we willing to go? And how quietly? To ensure freedom has the fuel it needs. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. So may the story of Operation Pluto continue to echo, not as mere historical curiosity, but as a compass pointing toward possibility whenever the world faces what feels immovable. In its silence, it roared determination. In its secrecy, it taught collaboration. And in its buried brilliance, it revealed that the margin between improbable and indispensable is often measured in courage and cable. Its legacy is not fossilized beneath the sea, but wired into the ethos of every engineer who dares to ask, what if? In war, as in all endeavors that demand our highest resolve, it's never just about the tools, it's about the will to use them in ways no one ever imagined. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas, and this one almost changed everything. So let history keep its monuments to battles won and generals praised, but let us also preserve a space for a different kind of legacy, the one Pluto embodies. It reminds us that some of the most decisive actions in war occur not in flares of gunfire, but in the glow of determination behind closed doors and on storm-tossed seas. Its success was not total, nor its failures damning, but its lesson was timeless. When ordinary solutions collapse under extraordinary demands, imagination must rise. Operation Pluto may rest now beneath the sands of time and tide, but its quiet triumph resonates still, encouraging us to seek greatness not in noise, but in necessity. In steel and salt, in vision and voltage, it carried more than fuel, it carried the future. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything. In the hushed corridors of history, where strategy meets invention and necessity breeds brilliance, Operation Pluto endures not simply as a World War II artifact, but as a living metaphor for daring utility. Its cables, long stripped and forgotten, still pulse in principle through every quiet miracle that keeps armies moving and societies connected in times of crisis. This was not a story about what was easy. It was a lesson in doing what was essential before certainty arrived. And maybe that's its final, resonant echo. That in every dark hour, it is not just muscle or might that defines the course, but the willingness to imagine something beneath the surface, to draw a line through chaos and call it hope. War isn't just fought with bullets, it's fought with ideas. And this one almost changed everything.